Now for the jewel of his fortress Europe. Paris lies wounded and empty at his feet. Paris is gone, London may go. Ottawa has suddenly become very important. There has been a bureaucratic explosion in Canada. On the Rockcliffe streetcars are the well-to-do who now work for $1 a year and grab snacks where there's a stool. Public buildings which served more leisure times are soon overrun. The workers overflow to the so-called temporary buildings, as hot and as indestructible as Hades. And when these are full, there are grandstands and warehouses, organ lofts and sawmills. Where there were once 50,000 Canadian civil servants, there will soon be 140,000. Ottawa is soon stuffed with red tape, but the wartime civil service somehow avoids strangulation. Routine is filed and forgotten. The Crown Corporation is invented. 1,000 restrictions, directives, decisions, demands are issued every day. There will be 92,000 executive orders laying down the law of the land. The country accepts this iron control. The price of indecision is too high and time is short. This wartime civil service is arbitrary, cold-blooded, and successful. One man is omnipotent. Surrounded by the brains of Canadian industry, Clarence Decatur Howe becomes the czar of war production. Orders had been slow in coming, but since Dunkirk, they are flowing in from Britain. The nation's factories are told what to produce and when, and the consequences. In war, it is said that democracy must suspend itself to survive. Under the War Measures Act, liberty is severely limited. The RCMP reaches out for enemy aliens and subversive organizations. The Montreal offices of Adrian Arcand's fascist party are raided. They contain the trappings of dictatorship. Arcand and his lieutenants are interned. The Communist Party is outlawed. Into custody will go Tim Buck and his chief confederates. Camillien Houde, ebullient mayor of Montreal, advocates disobedience to an order that all adults register with federal authorities. The vastly popular Houde is interned, but there is little outcry. Mackenize King, age 65, occupation prime minister, and millions of other Canadians dutifully fill out their forms during the 3-day national registration. The nation pauses to mourn two men. Defense Minister Norman Rogers is killed in a plane crash. Lord Tweedsmuir dies at Rideau Hall. Colonel Leighton Ralston takes the defense portfolio with Angus L. MacDonald for the Navy and Chubby Power for the Air Force. Lord Athlone is the Governor General, and his arrival with Princess Alice heralds a summer of new faces. Several thousand slightly bewildered British children are tagged and delivered to Canadian foster homes. There are the regal refugees, Juliana of the Netherlands and 2 small Dutch princesses. Canada is the depot of democracy.
I came from High Point, North Carolina, my native state, to join the Canadian Fighting Forces for overseas. I joined for the same reason that thousands of others have joined, because they love freedom and do not choose to be ruled by tyrants.
I live in Detroit. Having served in the Canadian Army in the last war, I figured I'd have a job to finish where we left off in 1918.
From here at Kentucky, and I believe in democracy, and I'm going to fight for it.
Some are reluctant guests, a handful of swaggering Nazi prisoners, curious fragments of a conquering army. Upstate New York, an historic weekend in August. Some say the meeting that marked the passage of Canada from the British to the American sphere. Mackenize King meets at Ogdensburg with Franklin Delano Roosevelt. When the weekend is over, the two countries have made their first agreement for joint defense. As Roosevelt's representative comes Fiorello LaGuardia. King later remarked that the little flower of New York grew on one. He deplored LaGuardia's craze for publicity, but these two very different personalities give joint defense its start. Churchill, too, is dealing with Roosevelt. In exchange for bases, he gets 50 ancient American destroyers. 7 of these go to Canada. Flimsy and narrow, they were hell to sail, but sail they did. For a country sending some ships to sea with wooden guns, this was enough. The RCN had the men. There was a waiting list to join the Navy, and many had never seen the sea. While waiting for ships to sail, they found that even the sea could be improvised. Others got ready for war in the air. The British Commonwealth was training in Canada. Only 6 months before, it had been an ambitious plan. It was now an amazing fact. Canadians, West Indians, Australians, New Zealanders, and the British filled one new Canadian base after another. Before the paint was dry, the first pilots were there. The Tiger Moths were old, and the men were very young, and only a few of the instructors were pretty. The Army had a second division ready for England. They moved off in secrecy to no music but their own. They were coming, but England couldn't wait. With what equipment there was, the Home Guard learned what it could. General MacNaughton's 1st Canadian Division was one of the few formations fully manned and equipped.